If you think teaching kids history about like slavery in America and how there's systemic bigotry and stuff like that, you are a moron. The right wing loves indoctrination. They want to indoctrinate kids into being subservient Christians so that they can be controlled.
It's back to school season. So what will your children be learning about in the classroom this year? Lots of Republicans, including Donald Trump, say that schools are brainwashing kids, poisoning them with wokeness. But one GOP candidate for president has made fighting the war on woke in public schools, fighting against quote-unquote indoctrination of our kids, his hill to die on.
Yeah, and what being, I think it's so funny. Right wingers were always screaming at left wingers, "Oh, you need to wake up, sheeple!" And then when people become woke, they're like, "Oh, wokeism is evil." You're now talking about history and what has really happened in America. Nah, we gotta whitewash everything and make it seem like slavery was something that black people wanted.
We have drawn a very clear line in the sand that says our school system is for educating kids, not indoctrinating kids. You fall
Yeah, okay, teaching kids about the history of slavery is education. It's not indoctrination.
on the side of indoctrination, we're going to decline. If it's education, then we will do. We chose education over indoctrination.
Yes, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will see to it that students in the Sunshine State are no longer indoctrinated with gross propaganda, with harmful notions like, slavery is bad. That's the mandate from the governor, no indoctrination. But what does that actually look like in the classroom? It looks like this.
Slavery is as old as time and has taken place in every corner of the world, even amongst the people I just left. Being taken as a slave is better than being killed, no?
Wow. They're trying to convince people that slavery was good because it was better than dying, even though the slavers murdered a lot of black people because they wouldn't work or they wanted their own freedom. There was many times where black people had their feet cut off because they tried to escape and got caught. And here we have racist right-wingers who are trying to convince everybody that slavery was good so that they can try to bring it back.
I don't see the problem. How can you come here to the 15th century and judge me by your standards from the 21st century?
Oh, I love when people always try to make that argument. How can you judge people of the past with modern day standards? Well, even people back then knew that slavery was wrong. That's why a lot of people fought against it. That's why people tried to escape slavery, because people don't want to be slaves.
For those in the future to look back and do this is, well, estúpido.
No, what is stupid is trying to convince people that black people wanted to be slaves.
You can't judge. Slavery is better than death. The cartoon said so. Never mind that death came for nearly all the natives that Christopher Columbus subjugated in the New World, including slaves.
Yeah, Christopher Columbus, a fucking moron who thought the world was in the shape of a pear and tried to prove it, who didn't even discover America. Yeah, all he did was murder people, and these right wingers want to suck him off and think that he's this like amazing person. Nah, this dude was a moron, and the only reason why he was given money to do his voyage because the king and queen wanted to basically get rid of him.
Or that Columbus allowed sex trafficking of native children among European settlers, something he actually wrote about in his letters.
Oh, shoot, that's something I did not know. This dude was a pedophile, and right wingers love him. For that, probably for that reason too. I mean, once they find out, they will definitely love him even more for that, because most right wingers want to rape kids.
Obviously, that video did not come from Schoolhouse Rock. No, that animated non-apology for slavery is from an organization called PragerU, which, despite the name, is not a university. That video.
Yeah, PragerU is just some rich piece of shit who has enough money to uh, pay people to scream a bunch of bullshit and
It
lies.
is not a one-off either. It's part of an entire grade school curriculum. Here's how it portrays America's most famous abolitionist.
My name is Frederick Douglass. Welcome to 1852.
You have really cool hair.
I'm certainly not okay with slavery, but the Founding Fathers made a compromise to achieve something great: the making of the United States. Slavery was part of life all over the world. It was America that began the conversation to end it.
Nope, actually, the nation of Hades was one of the first nations to outlaw slavery, long before the United States ever thought about it.
Let me stop you right there, fictional Frederick Douglass, because it is true that the US was the first nation to abolish slavery, if you don't count Denmark, Norway, Haiti, Great Britain, Portugal, Spain, France, Russia, Peru, Chile, Mexico, Uruguay, Bolivia, Greece, Serbia. The list goes on, but
I know, right? All these right-wingers want to act like the United States was the first nation to outlaw slavery, when that is a total lie. These white racist people just love to whitewash history to make it seem like they were the ones who did all the good when they were committing some of the greatest evils.
you get it. Factual inaccuracies aside, PragerU's Frederick Douglass goes on to blast the tactics of a more radical abolitionist, William Lloyd Garrison, as a stand-in for today's Black Lives Matter protesters.
And people like Garrison don't just want slavery abolished, but the whole American system.
You are correct. His approach is called radical. That means a complete fundamental change of everything.
That seems silly.
A radical is anybody that goes against the status quo. That's all it is. That's why it's thought to be, radical, because they do fundamentally want to change the way the system is, and those that want to protect the status quo hate that. That's why you had so many people trying to fight and keep slavery legal, and that's why you still have people fighting to make slavery legal again.
There are so many amazing things about America.
We even had a black president.
2 terms.
So, Mr. Douglas.
Yeah, he wasn't even a black president. He was mixed. It's it's just that black blood rule again. If you got a little bit of black in you, you're black. You're not mixed or anything. I mean, Obama is half white, but nobody calls him a white president. Why is that? It's the black blood rule. America still stands by that.
Do you think we should be activists, just not radical ones?
Layla, your America, where people are free and everyone is equal under the law, sounds pretty great.
Equal under the law? Okay, if that was true, why did we have slavery? Because those people weren't equal. Why did we have Jim Crow laws? Because, again, black people weren't equal. We had segregation. And again, black people were not equal. Black people have never been equal in the United States. You got redlining, you got suburbs, which was created for white people to get away from black people. You have gated communities, which is again for rich white people to get away from black people. Yeah, black people have never been equal in the United States, and they're still not treated equally.
Did a pro-slavery AI write this? They might as well have. And sorry, that's supposed to be Frederick Douglass, the former fugitive slave who delivered a scathing speech titled, "What to the Slave is the 4th of July?" The ardent social critic who in another speech blasted American imperialists for conspiring against Haiti's black rulers, whose 3 sons all joined an army to eradicate slavery on American soil by force.
I love all of the anti-slavers who were willing to kill the slavers and free black people from their bondage, because that's the only thing a slaver deserves, is death.
That's the guy you now want to pretend to children in class was a guy who only wanted to work gradually and non-violently within the system? PragerU, again, not a university, is a far-right media outlet bankrolled by GOP right-wing donors, like the late Sheldon Adelson.
Yeah, this is Dennis Prager, an old, rich Jewish white guy who is trying to convince America that slavery was good, that black people should be slaves again, and that that's all they're good for.
It's been flagged for years for misinformation on politics and climate science. It was founded by right-wing radio host Dennis Prager, who just this year falsely said, "We don't know if the 2020 election was stolen," and that slavery wasn't so bad because most slaves could actually have children. And he said in 2020 that it's...
Yeah, slaves were forced to have kids so that the slavers could sell them because they were considered nothing but property, nothing but cattle. And if these racist white people truly believe that slavery was good, why aren't they allowing themselves to be slaves to another person? It's pretty weird, don't you think? Like Ron DeSantis, who claims that slaves were able to gain a bunch of skills and it benefited them. Why isn't Ron DeSantis becoming a slave so he can gain the same skills?
quote, idiotic that you can't say the N-word. That's Prager. So
Yeah, that's what most right wingers cry about when they claim their free speech is being attacked. They hate the idea that they can't be openly racist and be supported by other people. They hate that they can't kill black people and be praised for it like you used to be able to with the KKK.
it probably wouldn't surprise you to learn that for years no reputable public school district would touch these propaganda Prager videos until late last month when the Florida Department of Education approved those Prager You Kids videos that you just saw for classroom use, saying their material aligns to Florida's revised civics and government standards.
Yeah, their revised civics and government standards is racism is okay, being against racism is evil because the white racist people in Florida want to make slavery legal again.
So, the governor who said there'd be no indoctrinating of kids is now approving civics lessons from an outfit whose own founder boasts about indoctrinating kids.
All I heard was, well, because you indoctrinate kids. And which is true. We bring doctrines to children.
Wow, he's even admitting that he indoctrinates kids. Wow. Yeah, right wingers, they claim to hate uh they hate when left wingers indoctrinate kids into, being good people and not hating, people for having a different skin color and, being accepting of everybody. They want to indoctrinate kids into being racist trash so that they can again, make it so that slavery is legal. They want enough people to support slavery so that they can re-enslave black people.
That's a very fair statement. I said, but what is the bad of our indoctrination?
Can you imagine if George Soros turned up at a teachers' union conference to say he was funding videos to literally indoctrinate conservative kids and make them liberal?
Yeah, right wingers would be screaming and crying about how Jewish people are controlling the United States and indoctrinating kids into uh, liberalism or leftism or wokeism or whatever. These people are can I wish we could just get rid of every single right winger. We can just ship them off to Antarctica and they can make their own self a white haven there. I mean, if white people are supposedly the smartest in the master race, they can live in Antarctica and make themselves a haven there. And being that they are the master race, they should be able to survive.
Can you imagine the meltdown we would see on Fox and the rage from the likes of Ron DeSantis? As Adrian McCarthy, a Kansas State University researcher who co-authored a case study on PragerU, puts it, the kids' content from the right-wing outlet has a very strong agenda, a very strong us versus them dichotomy, and it's usually the evil, immoral leftists versus the moral Judeo-Christian right. She even...
I think it's funny how like right wingers think they're like morally superior to everybody when they're some of the shittiest people. They go after kids. Uh, That's why they project onto trans people and gay people and stuff that the left is wanting to abuse kids when it's always the right. Like Nick Fuentes, who said he wants to have the age of consent lowered so that he can rape kids.
Calls them, these videos, a potential gateway to right-wing extremism. And yet in DeSantis' Florida, it's not just radicalizing right-wing cartoon fan fiction that's being brought into the classroom. Classical works like Shakespeare are being removed from some classrooms by some Florida school districts who fear that the sexual content in Shakespeare plays will violate new Republican gag rules on classroom discussions about race and gender. Yeah, goodbye Shakespeare. Those same concerns have led most Florida school districts to stop offering a college-level advanced placement course in psychology because it includes lessons on gender and sexual orientation, which are illegal in the Sunshine State. That's in addition to at least 357 books that have been removed from Florida school libraries and lessons to comply with the DeSantis anti-indoctrination laws. Would you be shocked to also learn that with weeks to go before the new school year, Florida is facing one of the worst shortages of school teachers in America?
Yeah, people from Florida will not be able to get jobs anywhere around the nation because they're not going to have the proper education needed to be a part of these jobs whatsoever, and they should not be hired if they're going to express racism and stuff.
Can't imagine why. This is the dystopian hellscape that is the Sunshine State under Governor Ron DeSantis. Yeah, own the libs, even if it means you're screwing over your own kids. And this is what presidential candidate DeSantis wants to bring to the rest of America, even though the rest of America doesn't seem that into it. Not even most Republicans. The New York Times and Siena College asked Republicans in a recent poll what they'd prefer, a candidate who focuses on defeating radical woke ideology in our schools, media and culture, or a candidate who focuses on restoring law and order at our streets and at the border.
Yeah, because nowadays right-wingers are afraid of too many brown people coming into the United States when they don't care about when white people come into the United States, with like white Canadians being like the second largest illegals in the United States, being just expired visas, which is just dumb. People shouldn't need visas in order to come into the United States or to go into another nation. But again, right wingers don't care when there's, white people coming into the United States, but they do care when it's brown people or black people. Anybody with a slightly tan skin tone, they don't want it in the United States.
The anti-woke candidate got 24%. The traditional law and order candidate got 65%. In that poll, Republicans preferred Trump, over DeSantis by a
Nah, no excuse there. He is a tramp in a sense.
crushing margin of 54 to 17, continuing a downward trend for Ron DeSantis.
Though it's funny how so many people still support Donald Trump, even though they claim to be the party of law and order. They know this dude has committed a bunch of serious crimes, and they still support him because right-wingers don't care about laws, to be honest, until the laws are being used against them. They don't care if their candidate is a criminal or anything like that, as long as they're a racist piece of shit. That's all they care about. Somebody that is willing to be racist and commit racism and violent acts against people. That's all they want. They want to be openly racist again. That's why they love Donald Trump.
Look at this Washington Post chart. It shows how support for DeSantis against Trump, the red line, has plunged all year. But so has support for DeSantis against all the other Republican candidates. That's the blue line. The more people learn about Ron DeSantis and his war on woke, the less they like it. DeSantis knows this, so he's rebooting his campaign again, firing his campaign manager after she survived 2 rounds of job cuts already this summer. Too bad you can't reboot the candidate himself.
Your poll numbers behind President Trump have been pretty substantially behind. Can you
And what's funny is that Ron DeSantis forced or convinced his government to allow him to run for president while governor because the Florida Constitution previously stated that you cannot be a president or serve in two different official jobs at the same time. You can like only be governor and senator at separate times. You can be president, but you can't be a governor. But Ron DeSantis changed that, so because he's a dictator and he wants to control everything as much as possible. But he's honestly just shit.
He's just weird. And his wife makes him sound even weirder.
He was there for me. And he was there to go pick up my kids when I couldn't. And he did it with humility, and he did it with love. And I'll tell you what, can't ask for a better husband than that.
Okay, something that he's supposed to do, and she's like crying. Oh, he picked up our kids. Oh, that's so awesome that he was willing to acknowledge that our kids exist.
Yes, Ron DeSantis should be president because he picked up his own kids from school while his wife had cancer.
Yeah, it's so funny how low the bar is for like Republican husbands compared with their like wives. Like Republican husbands, most of them don't even know how to wash themselves, and the idea of like a Republican man like washing his hair or face is like such a like is so impressive for a right-wing woman that, it's just crazy how stupid these people are and like how fucked up they are, to be honest.
Okay. But it's not just his weirdness that's the problem, it's the authoritarianism. And not just when it comes to Florida's schools. After firing his campaign manager on Tuesday, DeSantis began his Wednesday by removing Monique Worrell, the democratically elected Orlando area state attorney and the only woman of color in that role in Florida, for being too soft on crime.
Yeah, no surprise he removes a black person from a position because this dude is racist. He would rather see this chick as his slave or somebody else's slave being beaten down and raped.
And just like a PragerU Kids video, DeSantis didn't even share his evidence. Everything Ron DeSantis is doing, from gag orders on school teachers and librarians to elevating propaganda cartoons as education to replacing elected Democrats across the state with political lackeys, is meant to indoctrinate and gaslight and to shut down conversations and criticism. It's exhausting to a lot of Floridians, to most Americans, and even to a growing number of Republican primary voters. They're just not that into Ron. And Ron, our budding authoritarian, doesn't seem that into the idea of American democracy, with checks and balances and respect for the will of the voters. And would you believe, as luck would have it, PragerU has a video for that too.